The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's the 5th of September, 2025. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com. Joined once again this morning by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And we are, I guess, a shade more than 24 hours away from the Miami Hurricanes' second game of the 2025 season. This one a scrimmage against Bethune-Cookman. And man, God bless the players if they get themselves up for this game, Matt, because I know we're feeling a little bit of a letdown coming off Notre Dame week, and now we got Bethune week. And I've been saying this for decades. I mean, I can't stand these games. I don't see what the value is in them. There's got to be a lot of other teams that you can play that will give you more competition, and you won't get beat. And obviously the objective is to just get in a game and get a W and move on. But what's the point of that? And so the question I have for you this morning is, how do the Miami Hurricanes approach this game on Saturday night at Hard Rock? And I don't think they'll do this, but I would approach it by starting Emory Williams. Like I wouldn't put Carson Beck out there for even a series and take any chance whatsoever of him getting banged up again. He just recovered from an injury last year, and just doesn't need to be out there subjecting himself to anything against Bethune-Cookman. And Emory Williams needs the playing time. I mean, you go back to the bowl game and the poor performance he had there. I do feel he's bounced back from that, but this is a guy that's one play away from being your quarterback in a year that you are hoping to play for the ACC title and go to the college football playoff. And I think Emory needs every rep he can get. I would just give him the ball from the get-go and let him run with it, and then look to get Judd Anderson and Luke Nickel in the second half. I don't think they'll do that, but your thoughts on the approach that Miami should take here with Bethune-Cookman coming in?
Well, the arguments for why you play the starters is awards, right? Because Carson Beck can throw for 10 touchdowns and Mark Fletcher can run for 200 yards, right? And the other argument that fans make, which I don't actually buy into this, is that game reps are so invaluable. This is not game reps. This is not even practice reps. Miami's practices have better competition against the first team, against the third team, than Miami against Bethune. Bethune just lost to FIU 42-9. They've been terrible. They're just a bad team. And Gary's Emory Williams thinks he's taking that from CaneSport Live, which was my idea to start Emory Williams. Of course, he steals my ideas because my ideas are brilliant. But no, listen. To me, this you treat it like a bye week. If I'm Miami, I treat it like a bye week. It's a free bye week to get your starters healthy off a really physical game. I know everyone's healthy, but really physical game. There's zero need to risk injury. Now, if you have the great depth that the Miami teams of 2001 and previous to that had, not as urgent, right? If you have an injury at a key position, well, the next guy's almost as good as the guy who's starting anyway. But this is not that team. And Mario has even told us, in today's NIL era, if you have a good two deep, you're lucky. And Miami has really good starters, exceptional level starters, playoff level starters for sure. There's a pretty big drop off at most positions when you go from the first team to the second team, because that's salary structure now, right? With NIL, I mean, you just can't afford to pay two great left tackles and two great quarterbacks, and you go down the list, right? There are some positions that are very good depth-wise, defensive end and running back in particular, but there's a lot that are not. So I'm sure they're going to start their starters for the first quarter, because Mario's whole mantra to the team is every week's the same. You treat every opponent the same. It would look hypocritical. You could look that up, Gary. I'll spell it for you after the show. It would look hypocritical to say this game's not as important. We're going to start the backups this game. He's not going to do it. But yeah, I think that he shouldn't risk injury. If a single starter is injured because some Bethune guy wants to be a Superman and hit somebody low after a play, I don't think the fan base is going to be very happy with Mario for having that player out there at all. I mean, it's like when
Yeah,
you lose 5-0 in the third or fourth quarter and your starting quarterback gets hurt, fans go crazy. So yeah, this is a very tricky situation for Mario to handle because you have to make sure you get out fully healthy. You have to make sure that it's just that just get in, get out, and they're going to win. So
Yeah, I'm no Beck. I'm no Fletcher. I'm no Lyle. I'm no JoJo. I'm no Malinoa. I'm no Cooper. I think I would just run with the whole second team offensive line. They need playing time. None of.
And by the way, the whole Play Emery thing. What's he going to get out of this? You're playing against tiny, small defensive lines and they shoved around. You're playing against slow cornerbacks.
Yeah, but he needs to play against somebody.
He's gonna. Whoever's a quarterback's gonna look great. If anybody plays quarterback looks terrible, they should be cut immediately.
Emery was 11 of 12 in this game in the first half last year.
That was Ball State. But the way you want to approach this game is really try to get those freshmen. The nice thing now, right, is you get 4 games, not including postseason. You get 4 games for every single true freshman to play in. This is one of those games you got to play these true freshmen a lot from the beginning all the way through the end because for them it actually is game reps. You can see on tape some of the things they're doing technique-wise. They're gonna look good no matter what against this opponent. But you can see things they're doing technique-wise. You can actually have some teachable moments even against a bad opponent like this for young guys like that. And you always want to gauge effort level for everybody, of course. But there's just there's not much to glean off of this. Is the biggest problem.
I'm no Bain. I'm no Mesidor. Those guys don't need to touch the field. I don't want to. I know Damari Brown. I wouldn't want him out there. No OJ Frederick. He doesn't need to be out there. I just don't see the point in, like Matt said, subjecting your frontline best players to anything, any nicks, any twisted ankles, anything in this game when you consider you got USF coming in the next week, and then you got the Florida Gators, and then after that you got Florida State. So not anything to screw around with, and Louisville's in there too. So you got a whole lineup of games coming up here where you need to be as close to 100% as you could possibly be. Bethune-Cookman on Saturday night is not a place to risk injuries to any frontline players. I hope they do it. I think, Matt, you're right. I think they'll start the starters and let them get a couple scores, then get them out of the game. But I wouldn't even do that. All right. So coming off the Notre Dame game, you try to put your finger out. Okay, so what can this team get better at? And they looked so good for a good portion of that Notre Dame game that it's really hard to come up with stuff. I mean, manage timeouts better. Yeah, but that's more of a strategy thing without question. Don't sit on leads, play more conservatively. That goes without saying. But it's not like we're sitting here saying, oh, the run blocking needs to improve, or the pass blocking needs to improve, or the receivers need to stop dropping passes. There weren't drop passes. Maybe if you want to get really nitpicky, you could say, Josh Moore kind of dropped one, but I mean, that would be being probably a little unfair. The receivers caught the ball. The quarterbacks were accurate. The running backs ran hard. The defense played extremely hard. They had one bad play really in the game, other than the quarterback draws. For opening day, it was a really good, clean performance, Matt. And hate to beat a dead horse, but you just want to get the heck in and out of this thing on Saturday night and move on with your season.
Well, to me, what they can improve on wasn't effort. Their effort was great. Wasn't performance. The performance almost across the board at all levels on offense and defense was really good. There's no one position you're like, oh, we got to get better at that position. Everything looked good. What they need to really improve on, to me, if they're going to be a championship level team or close to it, which, as I've said, this is not a championship level roster, but listen, sometimes you can get lucky. You win a game, maybe you're not supposed to, and you go to the next round and somebody gets hurt on the other team, and you just never know.
You don't know.
But what I think they need to do is I think they need to expand the way they're running their offense. And I have a feeling that Corey Heatherman, the way that he played defense against Notre Dame, is going to be vastly different than the way he's going to play defense against the Floridas, Louisvilles, even Florida States of the world, right? Because they're just they're totally different animals in terms of how they run their offenses, and that's really the challenge. They had, however many months to prepare for Notre Dame. I mean, everything was going into that Notre Dame game plan from day one of the offseason, day one that Corey Heatherman was hired, right? It was all Notre Dame, because you got to get past that game. They're not saying, oh, how are we going to beat Florida? They're saying, here's what Notre Dame has. And I thought that their plans were excellent. So the real challenge to me isn't the personnel. We know the personnel. We know the wide receivers are going to be fine. We know the defensive tackles are good enough, right? We know they have to stay healthy pretty much across the board because the second team is going to be there's some question marks at different positions. But if they're going to have sustained success against other teams that are really good throughout the rest of the season, I think they need to expand their offensive playbook. And I think Corey Heatherman he says he has a multiple defense, but he has to also show that he can, basically it was a 4-3 against Notre Dame a lot, be that 4-2-5, right? Have some of the crazy movements of personnel around that he showed when he was at Minnesota, right? Dropping defensive ends sometimes and linebackers at the line that drop off or that blitz. And, there's different movements that confuse quarterbacks that we didn't see much against Notre Dame because they were just so focused on being in the box and stopping the run game. So to me, that's the challenge, not personnel. The personnel is the personnel. Yeah, you got to keep the guys focused and engaged, but this doesn't seem like a team that's going to just give up or go in the tank or anything crazy like that. It seems like a good group of guys that are really solidly invested in the program, solidly invested in each other. So it comes down to the coaching. That's what has to get better or has to evolve a little more, right? And on the offensive side, Shannon Dawson at some point will not have success running up the middle. Like that's just going to happen at some point, And when you got 70% of your runs going between the tackles, other teams tend to notice that. What percent?
76.
Okay, whatever the percent is. Other teams tend to notice that. And you could say, that's what we do best. Good luck stopping us. But when you're averaging 3.3 yards per carry against the Notre Dame defensive line, that actually was their weak point, right? Their strength is their secondary and their linebackers. The defense line is and was the weak point for Notre Dame. To just say, okay, we won, everything looked good, let's just keep it the same way, that's not my cup of tea. So not against Bethune, but against Florida, I want to see a little bit different offense than what Shannon Dawson came out with against Notre Dame. I understand that against Notre Dame, they have a great secondary, and maybe their defensive tackles aren't great. So, yeah, you run up the middle. You don't do anything too crazy, which is what they did. But against Florida, which I think can score a lot of points, their quarterback, if he's healthy, is a lot better than Notre Dame's quarterback, which doesn't say much, by the way. You need to stretch the field horizontally. You can't just have everything in this box up the middle, and then you're throwing up the middle to Malachi Toney, within 5-10 yards of the line of scrimmage for the most part, and a couple of deep shots here and there. It has to be, it has to be much more multiple. I'd like to see some wheel routes from the running backs, by the way. They have incredible hands. Like the worst receiver on the team is the guy who caught 3 passes last game, Mark Brown. Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lytle are exceptional receivers, and Rhett Lashley used to love doing that with his backs, right? I remember, Jalen Knighton, right? The wheel routes all the time. Yeah. Like these guys can do those routes. And we saw Jeremiah Love do one of them that would have been caught if it was a good pass, which it was not. So, you need to be able to show another team's defense that you do a lot of different things they need to prepare for, not just run up the middle, a couple of deep shots, and find Malachi Toney open, which is basically what Miami did in game 1.
So one of the things that's on the website today is our weekly You Bet CaneSport show with Lee Sterling. And we went looking for the line on this game, and we couldn't even find a line. So I just had Lee predict what he thought the line would be. And he came up with 52. Miami would be a likely 52-point favorite in this game. And, I get that there's a lot of money for Bethune, but it's like, I don't know why they would even want to subject their kids to this. And, I wonder, there's a lot of talk about the ACC going to a 9-game schedule like the SEC next year or the year after. And I wonder, what the 3 non-conference games end up being. I think Miami ends up still scheduling one marquee non-conference game. And then scheduling like a USF or that level of school for a second game. But that third game, I mean, I wish they would go with two teams like USF, but I don't think they will. I think they'll still keep a team like Bethune on the schedule. And, I don't know.
You know what they need to do is have, they could do an NFL type system where you have divisions, right? Because these conferences, they're going to be getting rid of conference title games. There's no reason to have conferences anymore other than negotiating with TV networks and trying to get money for a certain group of schools and all this stuff. And it's a disservice to, I think, to the whole country, to the fan bases, to everybody, that you're stuck playing these same 9 schools out of a pool of 16 or 15 every damn year. And I think they're going to come to their senses eventually, because TV money wise, it makes a lot more sense to have maybe 3 or 4 different divisions. And almost like in soccer or English football, I am a British citizen, believe it or not, dual citizen, but that's true. But it makes sense to me to have, A, B, C, and D division, right? And you start off with the A division is maybe the top 40 schools from the previous year in whatever, like the bowl committee, right? And those 40 teams, you come up with a fair schedule for each of those 40 teams, whatever it's going to be for the following year, right? And the next 40, and then 20 and 20, right? You have 120 something teams. And as the teams do better each year in Division B, maybe the top 5 move up and the bottom 5 from the top tier move down. That piques interest. That gets TV contracts. That makes sense. But, God forbid the NCAA ever makes sense, or these conference alignments ever make sense. I mean, the whole system is so irrevocably, again, you can look it up, Gary, it's so irrevocably broken and stupid that adding another game for the ACC, like, that's the big news. Like, oh, now we're going to play BC or what? Like, who cares? That doesn't excite anybody. Make an A division and a national champion of the A division, a B division, national champion of the B division, because otherwise schools like Tulane, that aren't terrible schools like, whatever, name the bottom 5 schools in every conference, their fan base is never going to have anything to root for. You need to have engagement from fan bases for this to succeed long-term in the NCAA football marketplace. So it seems like a no-brainer to do the football style thing. We have, all these different, just 4 different divisions of 40 teams, 20 teams, 20 teams, and there'll be a champion, 4 different champions. And at the end of the year, if you want to play champion A against champion B and champion C against champion D, fine, more money for you. But like, the way it is now is so stupid. And to hear the ACC like, oh, we're going to add another game, I don't care. You could take away 2 games. I don't think anyone would notice, That's where I stand. I just think the whole system is so stupid. And the rivalry system, I mean, you want Miami to play Florida State every year, but right now that's the only rivalry that's annual that I even care about. I don't care if we play SMU every year, I don't care if we play Clemson every year. I would rather see Miami play Alabama, Mississippi State, maybe pick a couple of schools in the Midwest, even an Iowa State, whatever, and maybe a school out west that's decent, and then a couple of easier schools that are in that top 40, and like go about it that way. I think that's exciting for fans. I think that's good for TV. I think it's good for everybody. It's good for programs. But who are they? They're not going to listen to me. I'm just some schmuck.
Hey, I think that Miami would love to play Notre Dame every year, Clemson every year, and Florida State every year, and let those be 3 tough games.
That's the problem. It's not going to happen.
You don't say that, because there's a lot of pressure on the ACC to allow these top programs the opportunity to make money. And that's the only way they're going to do it, is to play marquee games. And Clemson's already signed up Notre Dame pretty much every year. And I know Miami would love to.
So here's the thing. Teams go through ups and downs. And I know Notre Dame's a name team, Clemson's a name team. There are going to be years that some of those programs aren't real good, and they should be punished for being bad, right? So so that's the whole point. It's not fair for a program like, let's say, Florida this year. Have you looked at Florida's schedule this year, by the way?
Yeah.
So that's not fair. Just like if Miami was playing Florida's schedule this year, you're not going to the playoffs with that schedule. Like, is it fair that just because you made a schedule 5 to 10 years ago, that turns out to be impossible? They're playing USF, then LSU, then us, then Texas A&M, then Mississippi State, then Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Florida State. Right? That's ridiculous.
If you want to offset all the money that's being spent, it has to be fair, because that's what you have to do. I mean, that's
so if you do it with my system, it's fair because it's based on the prior year, not from 10 years ago when, hey, let's make a home and home over the next 10 years, or whatever it is. Like,
no, but what I'm
you may
saying is
end up
the
with an easy
ACC
schedule or a hard schedule, and you don't know.
Well, but the point I'm making is the ACC has come up with a system that will allow its top tier teams to make enough money
Top tier teams based on
to
final
bridge
record.
some of the
But
gap with the SEC and the Big Ten.
But there's schools that don't play Clemson or Florida State or Miami. Like, they get more money because they didn't play anybody, and they get an ACC title game because they didn't play anybody. That's my whole point. The system's stupid. Okay, it's based on faulty scheduling that could be fixed in a divisional system.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is they can't max out their revenue with the ACC if they don't play some tough marquee games. So it only makes sense. All these teams, Clemson, Florida State, Miami.
Right. So Miami plays Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame every year. They're not going to probably be in that top two teams at the end of the year and make all the money.
But at least you'll be able to pay for the electric bill. I mean,
but Miami's not getting. They don't get paid.
Like,
what are you talking about? Miami doesn't just get paid money for playing these teams. The ACC pays them a revenue share, and they get less of it if they're not one of the top teams at the end of the year. It doesn't make sense.
But if you're playing big TV games, you get it. You get to share in that money. That's the way they've set up the system. Right. So that's why teams like Clemson, Miami, Florida State are looking to play big games.
I thought the big bonus was if you're one of the top teams at the end of the year, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Well, you're a little mistaken. Yeah, I mean it's kind of a combination, because if you're one of the big teams at the end of the year, you're playing in the ACC title game. You're going to the college football playoff. So yes, so it does get cross over to that. But you got to play some big games during the year too if you're going to max out that revenue. And with the dollars that are being spent now, Miami's willing to subsidize athletics, but this is the best way for them to kind of get a little bit of return on investment. And that's by playing big games. Let's take a break for a moment and let's hear from our friends at CaneSport.
Welcome to CaneSport. New store, new items, same great experience. Family owned and operated since 2010, CaneSport has the latest merchandise from the Miami Hurricanes, Miami Dolphins, Florida Panthers, Inter Miami CF, and more. Come visit us at our store in Davie on University Drive, just south of 595, or online at caneswear.com. CaneSport, the spot Miami fans shop.
All right, so if you're going to the Bethune-Cookman game on Saturday night, there's no better way to get your day going than to make a pit stop at CaneSport on your way to the stadium. They're located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. That's about 15 minutes north of Hard Rock Stadium. And they have literally everything under one roof that the Canes fan could possibly want. And, we're talking T-shirts, jerseys, polos, hoodies, hats, flags, decals, magnets. If you need a chair and table for your tailgate party on Saturday, you could even pick that up at CaneSport. They even have gear for the Dolphins, the Panthers, Inter Miami Soccer. So you could really get yourself a lot of great stuff by stopping at CaneSport, where it's more than a store. It is an absolute experience, and they have sizes for men, women, kids, babies. They'll even dress up your pet at CaneSport. So stop by their store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. If you can't make it there, you could shop them 24 hours a day at caneswear.com. So 2655 South University Drive in Davie, caneswear.com for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. All right, another thing that's on the website, another story on the website today is we've got a message board mania feature. Having a little fun with the message board explosion after the Notre Dame victory, and nothing like a big opening day win to get fans fired up, Matt. And we had, a lot of different posts that ran the gamut. You took, a couple and ran with this feature. Why don't you tell us about it real quick?
There's nothing I enjoy more than making fun of message board posters. That's all I did. I didn't even remember what it was about. I wrote it a couple of days ago. I literally don't even remember what it was about. I just remember trying to make fun of as many message board posters as possible. That's all I did. So don't read it if you're a message board.
I'm not reading the whole thing. No, that's not the point. But you did picked a thread that was started by KJ Mahan. And by the way, this is my whole thing.
Is that his real name? Who posts their actual name on a message board? Is this? I'm hoping.
I think
that
it's his
that's not
real name. I think it's his real name. But you were basically talking about how glowingly he reviewed the Notre Dame game, and pointing out all the great stats and all the great positives that came out of that game, and there were a lot of them. But then where you started to make a little fun of him was where he also pointed out some of the things that needed to be a little bit better, and I thought that was kind of refreshing, to be honest with you, because the easiest thing to do inside the football program, which is where it really matters, is just say, hey, we just beat Notre Dame. Game was not as close as the score indicated. We did a really good job. We're set for the year. Well, no, you have to keep teams that are coming on the schedule down the road are going to get progressively better as the season goes forward. Miami needs to do the same. Needs to get better. Right. As hard as it is when you're playing Bethune-Cookman this week, but the way to get better this week is to play the younger guys and build your depth.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. And I hope people always think I'm so negative. Why are we talking about they need to do anything different on offense or defense? They beat Notre Dame. They just do the same thing and just beat everybody. Maybe they can. It's possible. But I do think that building depth is important for the future because, not to rehash all this, but again, the whole thinking on my end is this year it's playoffs, and next year it's competing for a national title with a national championship level roster. Okay, I know the schedule's hard next year. I understand that. I know they're playing at South Carolina and at Clemson. They'll play FSU. Blah blah blah. But and I think is Notre Dame on the schedule? No, Notre Dame's on the schedule next year, is it? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, they are.
They are. Okay.
Miami goes to Notre Dame.
Right. So they have a tough schedule, but that's where this comes in to playing these young guys this year because Mario's built up these recruiting classes. I don't know if people have noticed, but it seems like he's in the top 5 or 10 every single year he's been here, right, in recruiting. And yet he started, 5 to 11, 6 to 11 transfer guys every single year. And I think next year is where that sort of stops a little bit. Maybe you have 3 to 5 free agents and not just guys, right?
I'm not having this debate with you again.
No, you're not. That's why I'm just going to say it. Because they're losing a lot of guys, as Gary noted. Gary's debate is they're losing a lot of guys, which is true. Bain, Messer, they're losing a ton of guys, right? So the Lightfoots, and this is why I'm saying this now, the Lightfoots, the Blunts, the Hayden Lowe's, that's this game. This game is our sneak preview of what I think can be a national championship level roster next year. But they need to get the Cam Pruitts and the Aguirre, who had a great first game, right? These are the guys who will be the starters next year, right? If I'm right. And they need to be championship level starters. They've been here long enough and they've developed, you would think, long enough to where if Mario recruited the right guys and developed them the right way, this is now what his program will look like moving forward. And you don't keep needing to pay 20 transfer guys every single year from there on out because now it's just recurring, right? The guy leaves for the NFL, the next guy comes up, he leaves for the NFL, the next guy comes up, he leaves for the NFL. That's the golden ticket to be a recurring every year national championship contender, which is what Ohio State has discovered and some other programs have discovered. That's where I'm at with it. So that's why I think this game will be really interesting because I would like to see almost exclusively these young guys play, the guys who are going to be needed next year to be the roster I think they can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not debating the transfer portal with you. But I will give you one example. What are the chances of Lightfoot and Hayden Lowe being anywhere near as good next year as Mesidor and Bain are right now? Not high probability. It's just not. And you can't just say, oh, geez, I got to develop these two guys and I'm going to sacrifice having better players if I can find
Blunt, Hayden Lowe with another year of seasoning this season plus of the offseason. Those guys can be just as good as anybody in the country. They're like, how can you not say they're so talented?
Matt? What are you basing that on? Hayden Lowe hasn't even touched the field yet.
I'm basing it on what I saw them do in practice.
I understand.
And then you see Lightfoot must run like a 4.5 as a defensive end. I mean, we're not even getting to the Cole McConathys, who last year was awesome. Then he got suffered an injury. He's a freak also. Like they're pretty stacked. And Justin Scott will be back, right, with a year under his belt. Like they're pretty stacked. Defensive line.
They're pretty stacked.
They're pretty stacked at linebacker, and they're pretty stacked at cornerback, right?
Yes.
And then the free agents you're going to need at safety, right? You need at least 1 or 2 free agents at safety, depending how Dylan Day and Fitzgerald. I think Fitzgerald's going to be really good, but depending how he pans out. So you need 1 or 2 free agent safeties, maybe 1 offensive lineman. I'm not sure. It depends how SJ looks and some of the other guys. But I think the guard tackle backups, Okunlola, they're going to be really good. Running back's going to be, I think, going to be fine. Jordan Lyle will lead the way there. That's fine. And Marty Brown's going to be back. Wide receivers are all young. They're going to be awesome at wide receiver. Tight end, Elijah Lawson will be back. So again, like the potential's there. And then you need a quarterback free agent probably, right? So
And one of the greatest things they've done this year is they didn't overvalue the talent that they have, and they went in the portal and they improved every position. And I don't want to get into a whole nother portal debate.
Their talent still is a little too young and unproven this year, but I think next year they'll be ready. And I just literally went by every position.
If
every
that's
position
the case,
should be pretty good to excellent, and you just need those 3 free agents and maybe a couple more depending what shakes out.
And if that's the case, then you won't find better players in the portal because you'll already have them.
Well, so that's not true. So here's the thing. If you have an unlimited budget, then you should take 20 portal guys every year. There's no reason not to. It's for competition. There's always going to be somebody just as good or can push somebody. Like there's always going to be that. So you can take, if you really have the money, then yeah, I 100% agree. 20 portal guys a year makes sense. 100% agree with that.
But they,
let the recruits leave if they don't want to compete, like whatever. But if you only have a budget for portal of this much money, and you spread it among 20 players instead of among 5 players, like I'd rather have a roster of 80 players that is championship level and those 5 free agents than a roster of 90 players, which might be championship level, but now you don't have those free agents as much. It's more just, just a bunch of guys who are going to compete. So that's just the way I look at it.
Well, like I said, the greatest thing they've done this year is they didn't overvalue their roster, and where they could make it better, they did, and that's why they're right now the number 5 team in the country. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Moving forward,
I'll tell you why their roster is good. Carson Beck. That's why if they didn't have Carson Beck, like it's just one player. That's the free agent that mattered. If they didn't have Carson Beck, they lose. If you put Carr on Miami's team and Beck on Notre Dame's team, Miami loses that game by 2 touchdowns. Like that's how good Carson Beck is to me. And that's the difference maker. So you act like, every transfer they got was so important. Carson Beck was the guy. Carson Beck was the guy they needed, and they got him, and that's what matters. So don't act like
I would argue it went way beyond.
They would win 10 games with Carson Beck and maybe 4 other transfers this past cycle. They would still win 10 games.
I would argue it went beyond Carson Beck. I would make an argument for Marty Brown. I would make an argument for Brockermeyer.
It's great to have Marty Brown. It's great to have Marty Brown, but they didn't need him to win 10 games. That's my point.
I would make an argument for the center. I thought he was.
You need the center. 100% you need the center. You need the center. You need Carson Beck. I would argue you didn't need any of the receivers. I mean, I know CJ had the great catch. So I'll take CJ because of the catch. That's CJ. You needed 2 cornerbacks and a safety. So you needed 6 guys. Maybe 2 safeties, 7 guys. Yeah. And they took 22. So
there was a lot of value in what they did. All right, another story we have on the website today is Francis Manoa. He's focusing on finding ways that he can improve after his strong game 1 for the Miami Hurricanes. And Matt, it was absolutely stunning. He gave up a sack. I mean, we don't ever see Francis Manoa give up a sack. He gave up a sack in the Notre Dame game.
I mean, he gave up a sack last year, but people on the board, nobody's worried about Francis. He's a first-round NFL draft pick. A freak play can happen here or there. Not a big deal. People on the board, though, were pointing out that they're concerned about Markel Bell. They want Francis to move to left tackle and maybe put Sampson at right tackle, which is interesting because the one thing with Markel Bell, he is big, he is physical, he has long arms, he has really, really good hands, and he does a good job against certain types of defensive ends. But he does struggle against lightning quick spin moves. And that's the kind of thing that can hurt you in a game. In a tight game, that can be that strip sack fumble comes on a lot of those plays where it's from your blind side. So I see why fans are saying that. So it's going to be very interesting, because nobody knows offensive line better than Mirabal and Mario. And I'm curious after they watch the film if we see any sort of changes. Maybe Samson does start playing a little bit of left tackle. It'll be very interesting because I thought Samson looked pretty good, and he can play tackle and he can play guard. So that was the only thing I'd point out on the line. But I think there's not. They gave up I think 3 hits on the quarterback, 4 hits on the quarterback, something like that, out of 32 dropbacks. I mean, the offensive line is excellent. And we're really just nitpicking. Maybe Markel Bell will have a bad matchup one day. Maybe Samson Okunlola should be playing left tackle. Like, they look pretty good. So I'd be surprised if they make any changes, but that's just something I'll point out because that's been sort of a hot topic for fans.
I mean, if your standard is never getting beat, then anybody's not going to be.
Markel has great punch. It's just he has to get his hands on the guy. If he doesn't have his hands on the guy, then he's got a problem.
Yeah, hopefully he'll learn from that. That kid's come as far as you could possibly.
I think he's excellent. But it is sometimes it is difficult if you're 6'8", 6'9" to play like a smaller guy. Like that's tough when you're going against a 6'2", 240-pound defensive end, and you're 6'8", 6'9".
Did you see that right tackle for Notre Dame trying to block Ruben Bain on some of those plays? Yeah. I mean, that was ugly. I mean, he couldn't handle it from an athletic standpoint. It was pretty bad. All right, we got several recruiting stories on the website today. Story on 2026 Miami linebacker commit Justin J.J. Edwards. He came to the Notre Dame game on Sunday night and talks to us a little bit about how he feels about Miami. We got a story on 2026 running back, Leaky Thompson. He's committed to Louisville. Miami's still fishing around with him. He kind of reaffirmed his Louisville commitment to us, but you could read the story on the website today. Let's see. Miami's very active in 2027 recruiting, and one of those guys is Norwalk, Iowa 4-star Luke Brewer. He had his mom. He brought his mom down to South Florida for the Notre Dame game, and she loved it, and he loved it. So Luke has now visited Miami 4 times in the last year. So obviously he's very serious about the Hurricanes. So we have a story updating his status. We also have a story with safety commit Jalen Jones. So make sure you check that one out. He's getting a lot of SEC interest. A lot of those SEC schools are trying to steal him away from Miami. So you could get the latest update on what's going on with him. But if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, you see the information at the bottom of your screen. Please go to our website and become a member. Your subscriptions allow our entire team to do what we do every single day. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us for Good Morning CaneSport this morning. We'll come back at you on Monday morning. Have a great day, everybody.